Recording is in progress. Hare Krishna. So I say welcome again to everyone who's listened to this recording. Thank you for listening in. We're beginning today chapter 33 of parts of the Sankalpa Kaumudi. Before we begin, let's offer some prayers to the Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Pathaya Krishna Vistayavutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Sarasati Devi Gauravadi Pachaline Nivasesha Sunyavari Pashtatari Satarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Now I was going to give a little introduction to this particular chapter, but Maharaj gives an introduction. So we just read it, yeah, because Maharaj explains the context of this part compared to the other parts and what this chapter is all about. Because the title is part 7 is called Sankalpa for chanting with emotion. So emotion can often be an emotional discussion. It's got about emotions, which play a very important role in Krishna consciousness, because the whole that we are developing a particular type of emotion, a particular type of sentiment, a particular type of emotion. So this is going to explain all about that. Okay. All right. So
I was thinking, would it not be good if you just gave it a little introduction to it? Then when we're reading, it will sink in a bit better.
Well, what I do is I can read the first part and I can highlight. Yeah, okay. Marge explains it because I was just reading for it just now. Marge explains it in a very precise way, you know. So I can read first. Parts 1 and 2 of this book define some of the main aspects of sadhana-bhakti. Parts 3, 4, and 5 elaborated on the details, examples, and dynamics of a Sankalpa. The previous part 6 examined the determinations that take place in the process of attentive non-bhaja, which culminates in samadhi. In chapter 27, we listed certain important characteristics of smarandas that were elaborated upon in ensuing chapters, with two exceptions. The mood in which the holy name is cultivated, vipralambha-seva, and how success in sadhana is made possible by divine grace, kripa. So part 7 is about vipralambha-seva, the mood, and part 8 is about kripa. Right? These two sections are going to now be described. Because of the importance of these topics, they are presented in parts 7 and 8 respectively, followed by the summary and conclusion, a precise of each chapter. This present chapter introduces an aspect of sadhana that is integral to attaining Bhava bhakti, and that is practice with emotion, Bhava-seva, also known as vipralambha-seva. What does vipralambha mean? We all know this.
Not together is separation.
Yeah, not together. Is that the Sanskrit definition? Vipralambha. Vipra means separate. Is that right? Vipralambha. Anyway, yes, not together. So separated. So that's our position. We are separated from Krishna. So we invest. So that there's a particular mood there which is being identified. Yeah. So according to the maxim, a practice and its goal must correspond. Swa sadhana rupam hi pala savatra sityati. In the words of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that translates as one attains a perfection that corresponds to his meditation. It stands to reason, therefore, that a perfection that is saturated with the emotion of love is attained by a practice with a mood of emotion. Okay, let me read that again. That a perfection that is saturated with the emotion of love. So that's attained by practicing in a certain mood. Yeah, so chanting, say, for example, in a certain mood. Okay. Everyone's with us. Well, everyone. There's only a few of us here today. But are you all with us?
Would it be chanting in a certain mood would be like, he's not coming to me, or I'm so far away from him, or something like that?
Yeah, that's basically it. That's a basic, simple way you could describe specific mood of separation. And Maharaj is going to elaborate on that more. Yeah, so that's the underlying. It's quite subtle. Like we chant, but there has to be an emotion that goes with it. Our heart should be situated in a certain emotion. Marge will help us to clarify. Sometimes when we speak of emotion and doing devotional service with a certain emotion, sometimes we get scared that isn't this being a sahaja, where you surely these modes, these emotions will come of their own accord. And before that, we just chant with no emotion. You chant with emotion. We're being told to chant in a mood of vipralambha. Yeah, even a sadhaka. It's not as if you wait to attain levels of perfection. You, as Chaitodab, and as given in the Shishastakam. Yeah, we are separated from the Lord. So yeah, correct. That's basically it, Mother Rajkishore, simply put, you know. And it's easier said than done. Often we chanting and we may not even contemplate that we're separated from Krishna. We may do, you may not. So it's good to be pointed out so we can be reminded of the mood that should accompany our devotional service, and specifically our chanting. Yeah. Okay. So the ultimate purpose of the Vedas is to bring everyone to loving devotion to Krishna. To achieve that, different parts of the Vedas propose different sadhanas and sahajas. So sadhana is practice and sahaja is perfection, yeah? To match the qualification of their followers. Narada instructs Gopakumar on this topic in this way. So this is from our Brihat Bhagavatamrita. I'll just read the translation. The methods of discipline and scriptural statements that teach them should be understood to differ according to the different goals to be achieved. So Marge is mentioning here, so as I can understand, that if you're chanting Hare Krishna, but you're not in the right mood, you're not going to get the result. If you have the right mood, you're going to get the result. That's the same with all mantras. There's a mantra, but there's an accompanying sadhya. There's an accompanying perfection that you want from that mantra. For instance, if you're chanting the Maha Mantra to become well set materially, yeah, you're not going to obtain love of Godhead by chanting that Maha Mantra and saying love for matter. Yeah, because it's a touchstone, then you may be gifted with material facility, but ultimately you will be cheated because you'll be bound in a cycle of birth and death, just like everyone else. So that's what Maharaj is meaning here. So there is so we've been given a mantra, and we've been given. There's now Maharaj is bringing out the mood that we've been told that we should chant the mantra. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Because the Vedas offer so many paths to so many perfections, their students are often confused about the goal of life. And so they rarely have a clear perspective on the consolidated message of scripture. Even Krishna, the origin of the Vedas and its first professor, advises Arjuna to rise above the potpourris. Anyone knows what potpourri is?
Yeah, it's like a mixture of dried flowers and leaves and things.
Potpourri. So Maharaj is, I've read some Vedas, I've read some Vedas, Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, just out of interest. My God, it's so confusing. To actually fathom that Krishna is the goal, or that bhakti is the goal, just from reading the Rig Veda, you definitely need a guru. Otherwise, it's completely mystifying, because it gives different goals, because there's different Vedas and different modes of nature as well. So it can be very much a potpourri and very confusing. So, so Krishna is advising Arjuna to rise above the potpourris of sadhanas and sahajas. There's a verse, I learned it, but I forget now. Yeah, Krishna's directly telling Arjuna, and be established in the self. Yeah, rise above the Vedas and understand the essence, the essential purpose of the scriptures. Okay, I'll read to the bottom of the page. By the grace of acharyas like Rupa Goswami and Srila Prabhupada, Gaudiya Vaishnavas know the distilled message of the Vedas. Yes, so they've done all that for us, the Goswamis and Prabhupada. So they've distilled the essence of all the Vedas, which is Bhagavatam, I guess. To be loving, so the distilled message of the Vedas, to be loving devotion to Krishna, attained through sadhana-bhakti. Thus, a devotee's picture of spiritual perfection is going back to Godhead and participating in pastimes of love with Krishna's eternal associates. Okay, that we're all very familiar with, because we've been given the essence. If you hadn't read Prabhupada's books and you studied the Vedas, you will not come to that conclusion. All right, but exactly how do we get there? Right. With a goal that clearly includes divine emotion, a contemplative sadhaka will eventually come to the conclusion that in order to correspond to its goal, his sadhana must also be imbued with spiritual emotion. Sometimes emotion is a swear word in devotion. It may be. Don't be a sahaja. But here we're going to learn about the correct emotion. Yeah. Okay. Must be imbued with a spiritual emotion. How to achieve that kind of practice will require a close examination of our scriptures. So thankfully, His Holiness Shivaram Swami Maharaj has done that for us. And he's going to present now. Yeah, exactly what that conclusion is. Srimad Bhagavatam, the books of the Goswamis, and Srila Prabhupada's other books, since they teach pure sadhana-bhakti, which culminates in loving devotion, those texts must also teach the cultivation of emotion as an integral part of a sadhaka's practice, and they do. But a devotee must be well read to glean this aspect of their message. I was going to offer Chandravali to read, but she's just falling off the chair again in
No,
ecstasy.
she didn't. She went to switch the light on because she can't see anything.
All right. Any questions? Everyone know where we're going? So hold on to your seats. We all know which direction we're driving in. Yes, very good. Hare Krishna.
Are we going to cultivate some sort of emotion?
Yeah, that's it. We're gonna get all emotional. Yeah, I'd be amazed how sometimes after reading this and studying, you see, like I've seen how sometimes there is no emotion there in the devotee's bhajan or practice. It's just, well, perhaps there is. We may not be able to perceive it, but there should be an emotion. So sometimes if our rounds are getting like dry and just like spitting, what do you call it? Spitting sawdust. It's probably because there's no emotion behind it. We're just chanting mechanically, So we're going to hear all about this, the emotion now. And so like, what emotion do you chant if you don't have prema? If you don't have bhava?
But then this, you can't also chant sentimentally, like, you know.
Yeah, that's the thing. You're going to help to, yeah, because we might just speak about that. It can't be sentimental. So the point I'm making here is that what's the emotion if you don't have bhava and you don't have prema? What's the emotion?
Separation.
Yeah, is that you want it.
Separation.
Yes, separation. Vipralambha. Yeah, well done, Nitamati. You've just joined us and we already mentioned it. Yeah. So that's the emotion. Like what we don't have, that's the emotion. And we rest, you know, that's what we want. You know? And that's the emotion, which is vipralambha. Yeah. Okay. You can read Mother Chandravali unless anyone has any questions or comments on that. But yes.
Okay, so on page 647, right?
Yeah, the top.
For example, after Krishna tells Arjuna that the best kind of yoga is sadhana-bhakti, imbued with pure faith, he advises Arjuna to incorporate the emotion and attachment into his bhajan. The
Emotion
Lord,
of attachment. Yeah.
Arjuna to incorporate the emotion of attachment into his bhajan. The Lord says, we know this slok, which one?
Yeah, Maya Shakta Manopata Yogam Yuntam Ashraya Ashamsham Shmagramam Yataktakneshu Tatunu 7-1, I think.
Now hear, O son of Pritha, how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt. The spiritual science of awakening love for Krishna, of being always absorbed in affectionate thoughts of him, is called abhidheya jnana. Like sambandha jnana, knowledge of our relationship with Krishna, it takes time for a devotee to fully assimilate and put knowledge of cultivation into practice. Until a devotee has a full grasp of abhidheya jnana, his sadhana is generally formulaic and mechanical. However, the proper cultivation of regulated sadhana-bhakti, matured by study of Srimad Bhagavatam, leads a devotee to conclude that practice with spiritual emotions is an essential requisite to enter the realm of Bhava. It should be made clear that sadhana with emotion is not an artificial imitation of the symptoms of love. That kind of exhibition is unauthorized and only takes its followers to the dead end of sahajiyaism. Instead, service with emotion is vipralambha-seva, or sadhana, performed with the realization that one is distant from Krishna, a distance that is great misfortune. Equally relevant, can I just ask a question here?
Yeah.
You know, this about doing service with emotions, right? So when you're doing service, you don't really like cooking and things like that. You're kind of doing the service, you know? So how can you okay, yes, you always like say, oh, this for Krishna, don't put this for Krishna, put this, it'll be good for him to chew or suck. Yeah, it's things like that are there, but you can't be saying, oh, I'm separate. Yeah, you can meditate on that pastime when Radharani goes to cook for Krishna, and then you can kind of see all the gopis and everybody cooking for Krishna.
Yeah. Yeah, we can't. Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, the mood of Radharani when she is cooking, you know, she is full of emotion. She is meditating upon Krishna, you know. She's meditating very deeply upon pleasing Krishna. you know. But what you're saying is the fact like we're going about our daily activities, say as services within the temple. And we are, and we do have faults, but those faults are generally connected directly to the service. Like, is the japadi burning or not? We may be thinking of the practicalities, and within our, so it may not be accompanied with a specific emotion. But what, as far as I understand, perhaps other devotees can comment, is that what we want to develop is an underlying emotion which is there deep down while we're engaging in our activities of bhakti, is that we want to obtain Krishna. Now, it may not be prominent when we're actually cooking and doing the practical and the practicalities, but the underlying seated emotion is one we're hankering for. You know, I don't know if that makes sense. I mean that, and that
Is
carry on.
I was just going to ask: is the if you're cooking Raj Bhog and you're not like thinking about pastimes or thing, you're thinking like, oh, how am I going to get everything done? I need this. Where is that? And all those things. Are those emotions like,
No,
because they're connected to Krishna's service? They're
very much.
They're complete.
Very much. Interesting you bring that out, because that's Radharani's underlying mood is to please Krishna, but she's thinking the same. She's got like 12 fires on the go, and she's getting, you know, she's asking the manjaris, you know, the sakis, and they're absorbed in putting the vegetables, they're absorbed in making the chaunts. Yeah. So that is absorption in Krishna consciousness, where you're absorbed on the actual, in the practicalities of serving Krishna. But there is an underlying bhava, there's an underlying mood, which, for instance, Radharani has, which we should learn to, not exactly like Radharani. You understand? So yeah, even Radharani, yeah, she is thinking of, you know, is the fire too hot? Is this part, is this the pan too hot? Is it this? Is it that? And Mother Yasoda thinking of the practicalities, Mother Kirtida as well. So in answer to your question, yes, that is, because it's for Krishna, then it's directly linked to Krishna. It is spiritual, but it may not be of the same spiritual quality that of the perfected devotees, you know.
Yeah.
So does that make sense? Is that anybody else on this?
Because I was more thinking, are we just still collecting piety by doing all these things? Because like you look back and you say, I must have done something to be able to do these things in this life. Okay, you know, you need to do more things, but that means you're just collecting piety instead of developing that love.
No.
No?
Prabhu, can I ask something, Prabhu?
Yes.
Prabhu, now, when you were saying about, and when these both mothers were speaking, I was thinking, in the common normal world, like, okay, you say, oh, my son is going to the uni, I need to make this, he will study well, like he will be happy, you know, just like this is a material thing I'm trying to relate, Prabhu. Yeah. So why we are doing it? That's because you want to feed and you want to make sure he goes to the school properly, he does his exams properly, and he enters the uni, everything. So I was just thinking, the same way, why we do Lord to please the Lord, how much he is pleased is like depending on our surrender and what is the mood we do, and like that. Is that right, Prabhu?
Yeah, it's a very good example. Like, yeah, because we basically could say that the jiva can't be without emotion, but generally the emotions are to do with the body and the bodily concept of life. We
Yeah.
just transfer those emotions. So we're cooking for Krishna. So the underlying mood of us is wanting to achieve Krishna, wanting to achieve Bhava, wanting to achieve this, Krishna's, or wanting to achieve perfection. But over that is their practical service that we're doing. So we're meditating and we want to do the service nicely. So that it's not one or the other. It's both. And it's quite amazing that the soul can be like, we can take on these different, we can be absorbed in the mood of feeling separation from Krishna. And at the same time, we can be absorbed in the mood of wanting to please Krishna by our specific services and meditating upon that as being pleasing to Krishna. That's how it is when you read about Radharani cooking, for instance. She's full of emotions for Krishna, but those emotions don't get in the way of her cooking and organizing the cooking and thinking about the cooking, because that's also for Krishna. But there's an underlying mood that she has to actually be with Krishna. Yeah. But that's a good example. Yeah, Nitya Mata gave. Yeah, we generally people have emotions we just transfer it to Krishna. Let's read a bit more. Right?
Okay, let's see.
Equally relevant, I think.
Equally relevant is the realization that others are distant from Krishna, in which case vipralambha-seva manifests through acts of preaching and the awakening of the corresponding sentiments. Compassion. In this case, the development of the compassion for those devoid of bhakti to Krishna gives rise to one's own ever-increasing feelings of separation. And so the preacher becomes doubly qualified for Krishna's grace by preaching and by practice. And so one will ask, but how do we awaken spiritual emotions? We answer, since emotion is spontaneous, effort to experience it are inadequate. And yet the process of sadhana can awaken spiritual emotions, just as it ultimately awakens eternal transcendental emotions, prema. It is a matter of cultivation as expressed in the basic definition of pure devotional service, Krishna Anusilanam. The preceding chapters have emphasized two aspects of cultivation, namely Sankalpa and Ekagrata, determination and attentiveness. When Bhava-seva sprouts on the creeper of devotion, then sadhana-bhakti takes on the full characteristic of separation. In the meantime, emotion is in the formative stage, but it is there, or rather it should be.
Okay, follow. So in a formative stage, so we have to cultivate it. Yeah. So my now is how to kickstart that emotion. You can read on and kind of jumping
How
ahead.
to kickstart that emotion if it is not present in sadhana? By being attentive to the need of developing emotions.
Right, you got that? You got that?
Yeah, by being attentive to the need of developing emotions.
Yes, because sometimes the question is asked, how can I, how can I develop feelings of separation? Well, you can feel separation from feeling separation. You got to start somewhere, I understand you. How can I develop feelings of vipralambha? Well, you feel separation from feeling feelings of vipralambha. And so therefore you cultivate and therefore you meditate upon it.
Being at that moment,
You have to
being
start
attentive.
somewhere. Sorry?
Isn't it, Prabhu? Being at that moment and being attentive, and that's the beginning of feeling separation.
Well, by being attentive to the need of developing emotion.
Yeah. So when we, because now we are, when we are chanting, we are thinking, our chanting means, okay, Lord, please, you engage me in your service. Oh, but you are not there. So please do that. You know.
Yeah, that's it. That's basically it in a simple language, basically.
Yeah.
It. And I mean, the mantra itself is, when it's translated, is a mantra of vipralambha. It's a
Yeah.
mantra
Yeah.
of hankering.
Yeah.
It's like asking
Yeah.
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. It
Yeah.
is a vipralambha mantra. So
Yeah.
we have to be reminded of that and be in the mood of the mantra. What I just mentioned here.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the same, like exactly the teachings of Lord Chaitanya.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, read
Thank
on.
you.
Carry on.
Okay. As a devotee studies Srila Prabhupada's books and other books that are harmonious with Srila Prabhupada's, he will become increasingly aware of the miseries of material existence on one side and the bliss of Raj Bhakti on the other. Chanting the Mahamantra is such a polarized condition. The mood of separation gradually awakens and intensifies in a practitioner. And when vipralambha-seva becomes so exceedingly intense as to invoke Krishna's mercy, a devotee is gifted with love in separation, a truth attested to by Sri Sukdev. Those who drink through oral reception, fully filled with the nectarine message of Lord Krishna, the beloved of the devotees, purify the polluted aim of life known as material enjoyment, and thus go back to Godhead, to the lotus feet of Him, the personality of Godhead.
Okay, you follow here. I guess we take it paragraph by paragraph. So by studying, reading Prabhupada's books harmonious with Prabhupada. Yeah.
Actually, reading Prabhupada's books, like when you're reading, even like when you're reading CC, you kind of, you see the devotees, the way they behave, how they are with each other. You do, I wish I could be in that situation,
Yeah, that's it. So I wish I could be in that situation. That is basically the essence of it. That's something which we should automatically conclude when we're reading Krishna's pastimes, we're reading Prabhupada's books. I wish, I want to. Wouldn't it be great if I could enter into this stage, into this relationship, this type of relationship?
Srimad Bhagavatam, when you read stories or whatever, and have the offering prayers. Oh, I wish you read it and you understand it. Okay, it's like simple thing. But yet when it comes for you to offer prayers, my head is completely clear. Oh no, I can't do that. Yet you read over and over and you understand how to pray, how to do this. But when you stand in front of Krishna, or whenever you want to offer prayer, it's like blank.
Yeah, because you may not be. Well, because you may not be in a habit of it. It's something. It's a specific something that you may practice. It may be awkward at first. If you have that, if you really want to do that, then each time you come before Krishna, you can make like a self-imposed vow that will offer a prayer to Krishna. And we should be educated what that prayer should be. It should be in the line of pure devotion. That's the idea. First, offer some praise to Krishna, and out of humility, your fallen position, and pray for grace and pray for mercy, must admit, yeah, because we can be what's it called? We get, what's the word? Over familiar with the activities of bhakti, you know. So we have daily greeting every day. At least we do. We may go online every day. Okay, Govinda, Madhipusha, because they're every day, and we forget to cultivate the correct mood that goes with those prayers and what's happening at that time in the day. So it's good to have readings like this where we can remind each other. So you may not be practicing offering prayers, but it's something you may develop through practice, you know. Like,
Yeah,
so,
Andrew, sorry.
Carry
Oh,
on.
I'd like to. Is somebody else talking?
You go
No.
first, Lata.
I like to read the prayers, like the prayers of Brahma, the prayers of Indra, prayers of Kunti, and that gives me some idea of how to pray.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I have no idea. And usually they start off with, usually when someone's offering prayers to Krishna, like that I read, they usually start off by saying, we're in this material world and you're under the modes of material nature. You are above the modes of material nature. And then they build it up. They start off like that, like saying, this is my position, this is your position. And then they glorify him. And gradually it goes up to, it just builds then.
Specific request then, yeah. Or, yeah, builds a specific request for grace. Yeah, that's very nicely explained. And actually, I think Prabhupada says that he allows that there's so many prayers by the great acharyas that we can learn. So if we don't have our own prayers, we can also learn the prayers of the acharyas. But that's the prayer. It's one of the 9 angas of our devotional practice. Vandanam, you know. And some Christians take this much more seriously than we do, actually. But they do it again the way they will, they will read the Bible, for instance. They have their Bible study, and then afterwards they all hold hands and pray that God can guide them according to the Bible, things like that. I'm trying to say that some Christians take prayer very seriously. I just saw today, actually, I saw a little clip of these cloistered nuns, Carmelite nuns, who pray 6 hours a day. Pray 6 hours a day for everyone else. Of course, we pray 2 hours a day. Going off the point a bit here, but prayer is part of our practice, and how do we get there? Praying to develop. How do we get speaking about prayer?
It was me asking.
Yeah. Praying to be, praying to have the right emotion, praying, Mola Vonga nicely explained the actual mood of prayer from her reading and study. She's seen that, mood of prayer, which is emitting out of humility first. Meek and humble, yeah. Someone else had a question or comment, or was that? Let's put.
Got hand up.
You can read. Let's get back on track, so to speak. Where was we? The cultivative result. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Are you there, Kamada Priya? Nova?
Yes. Hi, Bo.
Go ahead.
The cumulative result of well-directed cultivation is what the devotee gives up all gross and subtle desire for liberation and sense enjoyment, while sadhana undertaken with feeling manifests in every limb of bhakti. It's especially associated with and especially relishable through Nam Sankirtana. This has been extensively discussed in earlier chapters. The Vishnadutas confirmed to Gopa Kumara the supremacy of Nam Sankirtana over all other limbs of devotion. Simply practice pure devotional service, mainly in a form of Nam Sankirtana, with a hope of gaining the eternal contact of our Lord's divine lotus feet. As with every aspect of bhakti, vipralambha-seva has this requisite qualification, which is either steadiness or taste. When that initial mood bhava is cultivated further, it matures to natural emotion at a stage of asakti. Whether devotee has attained spontaneous devotion or whether he remains a regulated practitioner, his devotion should be colored by feelings of separation. During the initial
good description. You know that early discussion we had about the mood of cooking, and where and I was trying to explain the underlying. So the March describes it should be colored by feelings of separation. Yeah, but also mentions here the specific stage where this is cultivated seriously, where it can be cultivated in earnest. That's the stage of nishta, yeah, where one is fixed in the principles of bhakti or taste. Then that's really when one really cultivates this vipralambha. Yeah, so his devotion should be colored by feelings of separation. So this is regulated practice. Yeah. Okay, carry on.
During the initial cultivation of Bhava Seva, emotion is an aspect of knowledge, abhideya jnana. When, however, emotion becomes more spontaneous, knowledge of it becomes a concomitant factor. Nonetheless, knowledge of service and separation is essential to the attainment of emotion. As Krishna says, those who know what they are doing achieve success in their work, whereas ignorant people don't. From that has been written above, it can be seen that cultivating vipralambha includes acquiring a grasp of abhideya jnana, and the practices that correspond to it, keeping one's sights on a goal while being attentive to one's progress in sadhana, and finally rendering service with such heartfelt feelings that Krishna becomes obliged to bestow his mercy.
Yeah, just one point here. That you just read from the 10th canto, this here, again, quote, those, Krishna says, those who know what they are doing achieve success in their work, whereas ignorant people do or not. So this is quite sweet. This is from Govardhan Leela, where Krishna was questioning Nanda Maharaj, why is he worshipping Indra? And Nanda Maharaj was a bit evasive with the answer. So then Krishna was kind of pressing him. So he said this to his father: what's the point of doing this sacrifice for Indra if you don't understand why we're doing it? So therefore, better we worship Govardhan, just as for your information. Okay, carry on.
In the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishna himself taught us how to express his mood of separation in his Sri Shikshastaka prayer, praying to Krishna to be able to chant his holy name in ecstatic love.
Okay, let's just read this. Nayanam galat ashudharya varanam gat gata hudayagita pulake nitidamba pukata tavanama grahani bhavishyati. Quote, yeah.
My dear Lord, when will my eyes be beautified by a feeling with tears that constantly glide down as I chant your holy name? When will my voice falter and all the hairs on my body stand erect in transcendental happiness as I chant your holy name? While all aspects of devotional service are the grace of Krishna, the more elevated the devotion aspired for, the more elusive the requisite grace. Yet we are fortunate that in this age Krishna appears in a form in which he is eager to distribute divine grace. Indeed, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishna freely distributes prema, the rare spiritual treasure and the ultimate expression of mercy. Thus, by the grace of Gauranga, what was rarely attained in the past, and even then with a great difficulty, is now secured with relative ease. We need only know the art of appealing to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's kind heart. The subject of Vipralambha is voluminous, and yet we have dedicated only a few chapters to its glories. Perhaps in the future a Vaishnava will do justice to the topic by writing a book on it. In the meantime, we request our reader to recognize the importance of rendering service with emotion as a means of practicing sadhana and attaining bhava. We employ the phrase Bhava-seva as a greater expression of emotions, which include vipralambha-seva. The purpose is to emphasize the importance of emotion in sadhana. That said, later chapters on this topic will focus on feelings of separation. However, our starting point is at a more general service with emotion. In a definition of pure devotional service, beginning with Anya Bilashana Shunyam, the word Anushilayam cultivation has two aspects: an active form, Chesta Rupa, which engages the body, mind, and words, and an emotional form, Bhava Rupa, which consists of emotion. Those are the ways in which devotional service is cultivated. By far, the greatest emphasis in Vaidhi sadhana-bhakti is on an active form of cultivation, Chesta Rupa, in which a devotee accepts things favorable to his service and rejects those which are unfavorable. Emotional aspect of cultivation, Bhava Rupa, comes to prominence of Bhava Bhakti as the spiritual emotions generated by it are both transcendental and significant. However, Bhava Rupa doesn't play an insignificant role in sadhana bhakti. Emotions at sadhana are not transcendental, but they are relevant emotions nonetheless, and those are spiritual too. Emotions come to the fore at the stage of a taste and attachment, which Krishna makes a condition for attainment of love. Would be in the case, emotions at less advanced stages of sadhana are not inconsequential. Indeed, they are imperative. Let us recall the definition of Bhava Bhakti.
So there's a verse now. Yes, you can quote that verse. Yeah, it's good. Sometimes it's good because many devotees don't have the book. So when there's a verse like this, if we're reading, it's always good to say quote, because then say unquote, because then those who don't have a book, they know it's the verse has been read. Otherwise, it may be a little bit. It may help to understand better, you know. So anyway,
Okay.
so quote. Go on.
Quote: when devotional service is executed on a transcendental platform of pure goodness, it's like a sun ray of love for Krishna. At such a time, devotional service causes the heart to be softened by various tastes, and one is then situated in bhava, emotion. Unquote.
Yeah, well done, Hare Krishna. Right, any questions or comments here before Marie Korea carries on reading? So the emotions at sadhana may not be completely spiritual. So, but there should be some emotions there. They may not be completely spiritual, but it will be fully spiritual at this, obviously at the stage of bhava. Chesta Rupa means to engage. I often refer to these two words, Chesta Rupa, which means engaging the body, mind, and words, and then Bhava Rupa, which consists of emotion. Okay? So this chapter is about more the Bhava Rupa. Okay, we've got 5 minutes left. You can read a bit more. Got nice. This is an introductory chapter. Let's see how long. It's quite a short chapter, but making a good headway into this chapter. Okay, you can continue reading more. If anyone has any questions or comments, please feel free to ask away.
The marginal characteristic of a stage of Bhava Bhakti is that the heart is softened by ecstatic emotions, and so the active forms of cultivation like preaching, prasada distribution, and a temple service, for example, are as a result of emotion. Thus, a guiding feature of ecstatic devotion, Bhava Bhakti, is Bhava Rupa. Even through this form of Bhava Rupa is electrified by Shuddha Sattva in a form of Krishna's Hladini, and some with potencies. It's a result of original cultivation what took place at a stage of sadhana. Tracing back the cause from an effect based on the principle of bhaktya, sanjatya bhaktya, that bhakti gives rise to bhakti. We must infer what divine emotion is generated by another kind of emotion, and that other emotion is attachment, as ashakti, which Rupa Goswami affirms to be imperative prerequisite for bhava. Similarly, even earlier stages of sadhana, especially taste, and less so steadiness, must also display corresponding degrees of emotion. Thus, expressions of emotion in practice and their maturation in ecstasy are known as Bhava-seva. After reading the above, the divine emotion is generated by another emotion. Readers may ask, is the Sakti not a divine emotion then? The answer to that question is, quoted, while not transcendental, Ashakti is spiritual, as are the strong emotions of fondness for Krishna, what it generates. We remind the reader that emotions at any stage of sadhana, like sadhana itself, are not transcendental, but they are relevant emotion nonetheless, and thus are spiritual to the extent that spiritualization of sadhana has taken place. Unquoted.
Okay, any questions or comments? It's like trying to follow this myself. It's quite deep, trying to follow the development here.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, please, Nitai.
Are we going to do discuss on this what we read now next week?
Well, we've got 3 minutes, isn't it? We've got 2 minutes.
Yeah. So because this is a bit technical, Prabhu. Too
Yes,
much.
but let me try in 2 minutes. Let me try and now.
Okay. Thank you.
It's quite encouraging because Maharaj mentions that why do we do service? Because there's an emotion which then leads to the seva. Yeah, I want to, I would like to, you know. That's an emotion. That's you could say that's described as a bhava rupa. Like, for instance, you mentioned active forms like preaching, prasad distribution, and temple services, for example, is a result of a particular internal emotion. I want to render some service. So that's like that emotion will deepen as we become purified and engage in devotional service and chant the holy name. Then that eventually will become completely spiritualized, and that will be more prominent. Yeah. As simply as I can understand what's just been described. So it may not be, Maharaj is saying that it may not be spiritual, but it's needed. Yeah. We remind the reader that emotions at any stage of sadhana, like sadhana itself, are not transcendental, but they're relevant emotions nonetheless. Thus are spiritual to the extent that spiritualization of the sadhaka has taken place. All right, so it's a big subject. Also because this here was speaking about the cultivation of pure devotional service. Yeah, because someone may be rendering devotional service for mixed reasons, and that's another whole subject. You know, what's in it for me? You know, how can I be well known, or etc. etc. There may be rendering devotional service influenced by the modes of material nature. So we may be cultivating the wrong emotion. Yeah, one may have the wrong emotion. So therefore, that's why it's important to understand the principles of pure devotion. Because if you're rendering devotional service and you're not cultivating the right emotion, then they're not going to get prema. That's why our reasons for doing service should be pure, as pure as we can do at our stage in spiritual practice. You know, otherwise we won't get prema because we're not cultivating prema, because we're cultivating something else. You know, the bhakti ladabhi, anyway, whole subject. Hare Krishna. Right, so let's perhaps stop here. There's quite a lot to digest there in that 1 hour, but just try that. Try to remember that the underlying what did I say? Colored. Oh, let's try and remember that the emotion or feeling separation should be something that we develop, and even especially even at the stages of sadhana-bhakti. So our chanting should be in a mood that we are wanting to obtain Krishna, and not chant just mechanically. It has to be in the mood and emotion that goes behind that chanting. Yeah, then we will find the fruits of our chanting to be very wonderful. You know. Okay, we'll stop there. So thank you everyone for joining us, and please join us tomorrow if you have time or you're so inclined. We're having a great time reading Bhagavad Gita, so please join us for that. So Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.